So we made it in the top 10, which I'm super chuffed with. Oh dear. Get stronger, work on strength and mobility. Add in some mobility work. Get yourself... Welcome back folks, I'm Lloyd Purvis and this is Run4Adventure. We are back today with a video where we're going to discuss a topic that I feel is very current at the moment. After speaking to lots and lots of runners over the last 2 or 3 months, I've started to realise there's a bit of a pattern forming, and there's a lot of runners out there that are really struggling with self-motivation when it comes to their training. I've spoken to runners that have really dropped off their weekly mileage, and I've spoken to some runners that have almost stopped running altogether. I think it comes down to we haven't got these busy calendars to sort of focus our minds and to give us that motivation when it comes to our weekly training. It really has made me realise there's a lot of runners out there where the racing side of their running is a massive focus when it comes to their training. Whether the racing side is competitiveness or the social side of it, having all them races cancelled has had a huge impact on them. I would say for me, I'm not a prolific racer, but this year I actually had quite a lot of races booked in, and some of them races were big races that have taken me 2 or 3 years to actually get a place on the start line. Obviously they were all cancelled, so it did hit me quite hard this year. But I've stayed consistent with my training. I've enjoyed my running. I think in actual lockdown, I actually upped my weekly miles. So it hasn't had too much of an impact on me. And that's because I've put things in place. So I thought we'd go through in today's video the things that I've put in place to help me through them tougher months, to stay driven, to stay consistent in my training, and some of the tools I've used to motivate me, especially going into the tougher winter months. So tip number 1 is structure in our training. And by this I mean it's really important for motivation, I feel, is if we get something written down when it comes to our training plans. Now, it could be written on a calendar, it could be written in a diary, in a notebook, but I think it's really important to get a plan written down in some kind of format. I've always found over the years that if I take that time to write a plan down, I tend to do sort of a month in advance, then I'm much more likely to stick to that plan, but it also helps me stay self-motivated when it comes to my training. You know them days when you come home from work, you've had a busy day, it's winter time, it's dark, it's wet, you get home, you sit down, you feel tired, and you kind of go, do you know what, I won't go out tonight, I'll maybe do the session tomorrow. Or comes the weekend, long run, you get up early, you've set your alarm, and you can hear outside it's blowing a hoolie and chucking it down with rain, so you hit that stop button, you pull the duvet on your head, over your head and go back to sleep. When I've got a plan written down, I very rarely do that. I tend to stick to it. When I'm training sort of day by day a bit more organically, that has definitely happened quite a few times. Now, these plans don't have to be super detailed, super scientific, where you analyze every heart rate zone, every bit of minute miling of every single session. They can be very simple, and I keep mine very simple. I think a lot of people are put off with structuring their training because they feel they haven't got the knowledge to do so. So what I tend to do is I'll print off a couple of really simple formatted calendars. I'll plan, like I said before, a month in advance. So I'll get that calendar and I'll plan out the days that I'm going to be running. Tends to be 4 or 5 days a week. I'll throw in sort of 2 to 3 recovery or rest days, as I call them, where I'll focus on body maintenance, so rolling, massage balls, stuff like that, but also a bit of mobility work, a bit of stretching, and a bit of strength and conditioning as well. And then on them running days, I'll just go into a bit more detail on the calendar. So I'll pick out my long day. So the day I'm going to go for my long run tends to be early Sunday morning. I might just write in there the distance I want to cover and the sort of average pace I want to hit. So again, really simple. I'll work in a couple of rest days where I'm just going to do 7 or 8 miles at a really comfortable sort of 8:30, 8-minute miling pace. And then I'll go a bit more detailed on them structured days. So a couple of days in there where I want some real quality in my training. So It might be a hill rep session, it might be intervals, it might be tempos, but again, a bit more detail in there. So hill sessions, I might put 2 mile warm up, 3 miles hill sessions, 2 mile cool down. So again, pretty simple when it comes to the details on each session. Obviously, if you want to go more detailed than that, then that's great. You know, if you want to analyze and split everything down and go into your mileage, your minute miling, heart rate zones, that's great. But just get something written down on paper. Or if you want to take it to the next level and maybe get yourself a coach or an online coach, there's some great coaches online now that it doesn't cost the earth. And I think a great way of motivating yourself is to have a coach. You know, when someone's written down and come up with a session for you, you are definitely more likely to stick to it. So having a coach online can really, really help with motivation, but up to you how you do it. But I really feel getting a bit of structure in your training, getting something written down in ink on paper is a massive help when it comes to focus and motivation in our training. Next up, working on our weaknesses. Now I know runners love to run obviously, but maybe we're not the best when it comes to working on the other side of running. Strength and conditioning, stretching, body maintenance. I know I was definitely guilty of this in the first 2 or 3 years of my running, and funnily enough, I kept running myself into problems and issues. I soon worked out that I needed to look after myself a lot better if I was going to train consistently and make improvements when it came to my running. I personally think while there isn't many races on, it is the perfect time to work on these areas. There's some great stuff online when it comes to runners' strength and conditioning and mobility. To name one, the Run Experience has some great stuff on their YouTube channel and on their other social media platforms when it comes to exercises to strengthen us as runners. We'll leave a link in the description if you want to go and check them guys out. But you could also get in touch with a knowledgeable sports physio, go and get an initial assessment, and maybe that assessment will highlight the areas that you could improve on, and then get a plan in place so you can make them improvements. Next step is to get yourself a roller or two and maybe a cheeky little massage ball. You don't have to spend a fortune on these items, they can be picked up pretty cheap nowadays, and start to learn a few self-treatment exercises that you can do at home to keep your body nice and loose while you're training. I would always recommend going to see a professional first, so a really good sports massage therapist, and I'd always go on recommendation. Obviously, we can't treat ourselves with a massage ball and a foam roller like a therapist would with all their knowledge, also with their thumbs and pointy elbows, but they're a wealth of knowledge. So if you go along, ask lots of questions, listen to all their advice, you'll come away with a much better understanding of the human body, and in particular, a much better understanding of what works for you as a runner when it comes to body maintenance. Next up is a motivational training tool that I use all the time, but for this one, we're going to be heading out to the streets of Hale. Yep, we've come outside for this section of the video because we're going to be running, but we're also going to be discussing how the virtual world can really help with focus and motivation when it comes to your training. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are owners of smartphones of some description, and we can obviously download apps onto that smartphone. There's lots of fitness apps out there that can help us through our training. I'm a massive fan of Strava. I have been for many years, ever since I can remember, ever since I started running. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know of Strava, and you probably have it downloaded onto your phone and you upload training runs already to it. But I tend to use it to, you know, log my training runs, to keep an eye on my monthly mileage. I sometimes go a bit more in depth and analyse minute miling, elevation gained over the month, and I also use it to log the mileage on my shoes, which is a brilliant feature within the app, especially when you have as many pairs of running shoes that I have. So since lockdown, what I've been doing is diving a bit deeper into the world of Strava, and what I've realised is there is a lot more to that app that can really help motivate us when it comes to our training. I found out early on in lockdown that I was going out and I was running a lot of the same routes, and you know, it was getting a bit tedious, I was getting a bit flat in my training, and I was definitely losing a bit of motivation. So looking at the app, I discovered this route building part of the app, which is a brilliant feature, really simple to use, but what it allows you to do is to build a route, a local route to you, your local area, using all the data that Strava has gathered from other runners that run in that area. So you literally, super simple, you pick a starting point, you pick a finish point, you can choose where you want it, flat, hilly, paved or trail, and then the app actually builds you a route. So Again, I think running the same route all the time can have a really negative impact on our training when it comes to mental and physical. You know, your body gets used to running the same routes and you're not getting as good a workout. I think a new route is super motivational. It's like you're going out on an adventure, you're running on undiscovered paths and trails, and it becomes a lot more exciting. So what we've done today is use that route builder feature in the Strava app, and we've built a route. We've also worked in a few segments, which we'll talk about once we're out on the run, but we're going to get kitted up, we're going to grab the GoPro, we're going to get out on the streets of Hale, and we'll fill you in a bit more about it. Typical British weather, it's clouded over, it's really gloomy and the wind's picked up, so let me tuck in a bit. So we've got the Go Faster shoes on today. We're running in the Saucony Endorphin Speeds. I'd forgotten what a great feeling shoe this is. I haven't run in it in some time. The reason I'm in it is because in the route that we built on Strava, we've included some of their segments. So what is a segment? It is a super cool feature within the app where other Strava members have taken a portion of road or trail, they've named it and then turned it into a segment. So other runners and cyclists can have a bit of friendly competition competing against each other on a leaderboard. Once you finish your run, you can jump onto the app, click onto the leaderboard, and you can see where you've placed on that segment against all your other Strava buddies. So it's kind of like a little time trial within your training run. It's a great way of motivating yourself through that training run, but I feel it's also a great way of seeing progression in your training. Right, anyway, we're coming up to our first segment in this run, so I better put the camera down and we're going to be hitting the King George kicker. Let's get it done. So that is the first segment ticked off. Strava segments can be all different distances, some short, some long. The King George kicker is just under half a mile. Felt like a really good effort. The shoes felt great and quick, but it'll be really interesting to see how I fared on the leaderboard when we upload the run later. But let's get on with the run. So we're coming up to the last segment and it's aptly named the viaduct to the end of the footpath. Yeah, believe it or not, it starts from a viaduct. So a little bit longer this segment and there's a bit of a headwind. So this one is going to be harder, but let's get on with it. That is the end of the footpath. Whoa, I'm hiding behind this rock. It is so windy. Really strong headwind there. That was a tough segment. I don't think I fared very well on that. I was pushing hard but getting nowhere. So we've done all the segments. We've got about a 2-mile loop to complete the route and then we're going to be heading back to the van. Well, that route worked out really well. To be honest, it was a little bit chilly when I first started out, but we got a good 6.9 miles in, nice and flat. We threw a couple of cheeky little segments in there just for good measure, but let's get back, let's upload the run and let's have a look at the data that we've gathered. So we're back home and we have uploaded the route onto our phone. So let's dive into the Strava app and let's have a look at the data in a bit more detail and see how we got on. So The route was 6.9 miles. It was a pretty flat route. We had one short but pretty steep hill at the turning point. We took it pretty steady. It was a pretty steady pace run, and we did a bit of filming along the way. So average minute miling across the route was 7:50 minute miling, and then we had a couple of Strava segments thrown in just for a bit of competition along the way. Let's take a look and see how we got on the first segment, and to see how we placed against the other runners on the leaderboard. It felt like a good effort. You know, I ran pretty fast, and to be honest, it was early in the run, and we had a pretty strong tailwind blowing us down King George's Walk. But let's check out the leaderboard, and okay, we've come fourth, so we made it into the top 10. We ran the King George kicker in 2 minutes and 57 seconds, and we're only, what, 19 seconds off of top spot, which is great. I think I can definitely move up that leaderboard a couple of places, and it gives me something to focus on next time I'm running that segment. Next up, when it came to segments, was viaduct to the end of the footpath. Now, I don't think I performed as well on this segment as the first segment. One, it was a bit later in the run, and two, instead of a crazy tailwind pushing us along, I had a really strong headwind slowing me down. Can you tell I'm already making up all the excuses for my performance? But let's jump on and let's take a look at the segment. So on the leaderboard, where are we there? Yeah, awesome. So you see that? We've made it onto the top 10. We are 8th this time on the leaderboard. We ran the viaduct to the end of footpath in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. What's great about that is knowing what the weather was like, I can definitely make big improvements. I reckon I could probably take 30 seconds at least off of that time. That would move us right up the leaderboard, so something to focus on in the future. What I will say is I don't think I'll be taking top spot, because the guy in top spot ran it in 1 minute 51 seconds. That is a whole 1 minute and 39 seconds quicker than we ran it. But all in all, really happy with today's run. It was really good to get out there on the route. Body felt good. I felt like I pushed and worked pretty well over the segments. And also, now I've got them segments to run, it's a great way of motivating myself in the future as we go into the winter months. So that is a few of the things that I've put in place to keep me focused and motivated when it comes to my training in these difficult times. Let's have a recap. So number one, a training plan. Get yourself a training plan. Now, it can be super simple or really complex, whatever suits your needs, but get something written down, plan a week in advance or a month in advance, and add in some personal challenges and goals to keep you focused along the way. Next up was working on your weaknesses. So get stronger, work in some strength and conditioning, work in some mobility exercises, learn how to understand and manage your body better so you'll be fitter, faster, stronger when we're back racing, and you'll be ready to smash all those running PBs. Last but definitely not least is making the most of the virtual world when it comes to setting ourselves goals and challenges along the way in our training. A subscription to Strava is around £4 a month, so not much more than the price of a couple of coffees, but it can give us so much more when it comes to keeping our training interesting and exciting. The Route Builder feature within the Strava app is a brilliant feature and a great way of putting a bit of fun back into your training. It is super simple to use and create new routes. I saw a lot of people, especially over lockdown, running the same routes all the time, and that's a really easy way of losing your running mojo in your training. I always find, you know, being on a new route, whether it be road or trail, is always so much more exciting. The miles tend to tick over really quick, and it always feels like a much more of an adventure running a new route compared to running the same old routes over and over again. There's also a host of virtual challenges within the Strava app, whether it be the monthly mileage challenge or the elevation gain challenge. Lots of things to get involved with. Speaking of challenges, Strava have just launched a challenge within the app called Last of the Light. It's all to do with the clocks going back and to help give us a bit of motivation as we push into them darker winter months. It started on the 25th of October and it is going to run until the 25th of November. So if you've never taken on a Strava challenge before, why not make Last of the Light your first? So that is a wrap on another video at Run4Adventure. Really hope you enjoyed it, guys, and you found it helpful. If you did, give us a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel out. And if you haven't already, why not subscribe to the channel? But Don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified when we upload any new content. Get involved, guys. Let us know what motivates you, what drives you on in your training in these tougher times. And also, we've left a link in the description for Strava and for the Last of the Light challenge. So if you're looking for something to focus on, click that link and get involved. Also, folks, we got some awesome new merch available on our website, from organic cotton hoodies to our super exciting Run4Adventure CL running caps, all available at run4adventure.uk. It is a great way of supporting the channel. Remember, guys, in these difficult times, especially now we are facing another lockdown, our fitness and health is more important than ever. Being fit and healthy is probably the best way to fight any virus, but it's also so important when it comes to our mental health. So stay focused on training. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video, and stay safe and keep motivated.